All right, guys, we're going to continue on with section 6-7, inverse relations. And you do have, make sure you do both of the quizzes, the attendance quizzes and then the assignment quizzes. All right, so on this one, what we're going to do is we're going to find an equation for the inverse. So we're going to be given the original equation, and literally all you do is you switch the x and the y, you flop them around for each other, and then you solve for y. We're going to do 3 examples. On the first 2, we're going to solve the original equation for x, and then reverse the letters and solve for y. And then on the last example, we're just going to reverse them and solve for y because I ran out of room. All right. So here's my original equation, y equals 4x. Now in parentheses, I have solved for x. They may not say that. And guys, obviously I can't solve for y right now because y is already by itself. So it only makes sense that I do have to solve for x. So this is the original equation. This is not the inverse, okay? So to solve for x, pretty simple. They're multiplying by 4. All I have to do is divide both sides by 4. And that turns into, remember there's an imaginary 1 right there. So 1 over 4y equals x. That's all you have to do on the original one. All right, for the inverse, notice that I flipped the x and the y around. This was y equals 4x. Now the inverse is x equals 4y. And then you solve it. And the steps are the same, okay? I need to get the y by itself. They're multiplying by 4, so I need to divide by 4. This time it turns into 1/4 x equals y. All right. And overall, I picked pretty easy examples to go over. 1 and 2 especially are pretty easy. So number 2, here's my original, y equals 2x plus 8. So again, the y is already by itself. So even if I didn't tell you right here you had to solve for x, that's the only way you can go, okay? All right, so I have to do 2 things on this one. First, I need to subtract 8 from both sides. And remember, I can't actually do y minus 8, so I'm just going to write it out as y minus 8. Bring down my 2x. And then you want to divide everything by 2. Now, I went ahead and divided all 3 terms by 2 so that you could see if anything reduced. This really just turns into 1/2, so 1/2 y. The 8 over 2 does reduce. Negative 8 over 2 turns into negative 4. This is technically what the answer should look like in reduced form, but on the quizzes assignment, for some reason, they left all the answers like this. Like they just divided by 2 and they did not reduce anything. Now that was the original, okay? Here's the inverse. And also on the quizzes, all you're doing is the inverse. You don't have to do the original. All right, so I switch the x and the y. This was y equals, now it's x equals. But again, the steps are the same. First, I subtract 8 from both sides. So that just turns into x minus 8 equals 2y. And then I divide by 2, and I'm just going to go straight down to here because this is what the answer is going to look like on quizzes. So it's just going to be x minus 8 over 2 equals y. All right, for the last example, I'm just going to go straight to the inverse. So I'm going to switch the order of the x and the y. And we want to get the y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So x minus 1 equals y squared. And then at this point, I need to do the opposite of squaring, which is to take the square root. Square root of y squared is just y, and I can't actually take the square root of x minus 1, so it's just going to stay the square root of x minus 1. You have on your homework, on your quizzes, I don't remember, 5 or 6 problems. A couple of them are like this, and then, you know, a couple of them are like the other 2. So just look back at the notes if you get stuck on anything. All right, see you tomorrow.